Good morning. It's totally natural. Welcome to City Church. Welcome to those of you joining us on Facebook. We've been waiting for you. Sorry that we're late. It wasn't my fault. My name is Mallory Redmond. I am the campus pastor here at City Church, where our purpose is to help people experience the fullness of God's love through relationship. I'm back. 2 weeks in a row, baby. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Wow, thank you. I just have to say this so that it gets out of my head. My grandma, I cannot stop thinking about this, she is looking down on me right now thinking, are you seriously preaching in jeans that have holes in them? I had a static electricity thing this morning with what I was going to wear, so this is plan B, and the whole morning I'm like, my grandma would just absolutely have so many comments for me. So, Grandma, I hear you. I think the Lord can still speak through me with holes in my jeans, but we'll see. I am on day 21 of 21 for my cleanse. I know you were all wondering. Anybody think that, let's take a poll. Who thinks that I've made it the whole time without doing caffeine? Raise your hand. Oh, so the rest of you don't. Thanks for all the faith in me. I feel really good about preaching to you right now. I have made it the whole time. Thank you very much. Super fun. Highly recommend. I feel great. I'm sleeping great, but I'm definitely going back to coffee tomorrow morning. You can think of me. I had I think he was our driver's ed teacher, and in high school, and he would like come into the class with all this energy and be like, today is the best day of your life. And me, I'm like very optimistic and hopeful, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen? Like, is he giving us a car? He's giving us a car. Like, he's my driver's ed teacher, he's giving me a car. He would say, today is the best day of your life. And we'd be like, why? What's happening? Because this is the only day you have. Like, this is the day you're living. And we're all like, womp, womp, that's so lame. Give us something, give us a car. Today, much to Mr. Voss, I think that was his name, I'm sure he would be proud of me. Today, I'm going to tell you why today is the best day of your life. And you might be, I'm not giving you a car. You might be very disappointed why. But we're in our series on Unlearn. And today we're going to unlearn or talk about this glorification of the outcome. Like, we're so fixated on the outcome. We're so excited about the outcome. All we care about is the outcome. And it makes it very easy to miss the experiences leading up to the outcome. And so I want to start with the life of Joseph and kind of use Joseph's life to illustrate why the outcome isn't what it's all about. It's about the experience. It's about today, like this day matters for your outcome, unto your outcome. So I want to start by telling you kind of how his story ends. So we're going to go backwards with Joseph, and here's the outcome, is he relieves the poverty of Egypt's people. Like, kind of a big deal, right? He's the number 2 guy in Egypt. The only one above him is Pharaoh, and Pharaoh basically says, like, we're doing what you say. So Pharaoh's just kind of like checked out, and he wants Joseph to like do everything, which Joseph does. Like, this is a huge calling on his life. This is a huge accomplishment. Before that, he managed the food crisis. There was lots of famine. You can read about it there in Genesis. Before that, he was promoted by Pharaoh. That's when Pharaoh said, like, okay, you're my number 2 man. Like, what you say goes. We're doing this. We're a partnership. Like, technically, the hierarchy, I'm above you, but like, you're the guy, Joseph. Huge promotion, right? Before that, plot twist, Joseph's in prison for like a while, right? Like, who would have thought, think of a person in prison right now, like, hard to imagine that then they would be the number 2 guy. Usually they're the number 2 guy and then they go to prison. So this is a little flip-flopped. Before that, Joseph was rejected, sold into slavery by his brothers. Like, he was thrown into a pit for a while. And so if you start at the beginning of Joseph's life and you kind of read down, like, those first 2 things, you would never imagine that Joseph got to where he ended up. He was in a pit, he was in a prison, and we talked about this in a recent sermon series, and then he's in a palace. Like, who would have thought his journey would have taken the turns that it took. And so I want to zoom in today on Genesis 40, verses 1 through 8. And this is when Joseph is in prison. And so there's a little bit of context that hopefully I can catch you up on. But he's in prison. He's been in prison for a bit. And so a couple of the king's guys are now also in prison. The cupbearer and the baker are now also in prison. So those two guys are in prison. Joseph's been there for a bit. He's a veteran. So here's what happens. As time went on, it happened that the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt crossed their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was furious with his two officials, the head cupbearer and the head baker, and put them in custody under the captain of the guard. It was the same jail where Joseph was held. The captain of the guard assigned Joseph to see to their needs. After they had been in custody for a while, the king's cupbearer and baker, while being held in the jail, both had a dream on the same night, each dream having its own meaning. When Joseph arrived in the morning, he noticed that they were feeling low. So he asked them, the two officials of Pharaoh who had been thrown into jail with him, "What's wrong? Why the long faces?" They said, "We dream dreams and there's no one to interpret them." And Joseph said, "Don't interpretations come from God? Tell me the dreams." So I could go on and on and on here, but I would end up reading like the rest of Genesis. But what happens, I mean, basically the rest is history here. Like this is where, if you zoom out on Joseph's life, things start to shift for him. 2 years later, he is released from prison. So it's not immediate. This is kind of a long span of time. But I want to take you back to the end of this second paragraph. So he asked, here, let me start. When Joseph arrived in the morning, he noticed that they were feeling low. So he asked them, "What's wrong? Why the long faces?" And I cannot stress this enough. Like, and I've read this so many times, and I think I've even preached on like these passages before, and it's jumped out at me this week. He arrived in the morning, he noticed they were feeling low, and he asked them, "What's wrong?" And you guys, like that question changed everything for Joseph. He had the sense of awareness to like be like, those guys look kind of off. I mean, granted, like everybody's in prison, so everybody's kind of pissed off, but whatever. He noticed like, those guys are kind of off. What's wrong with you guys? And this changed everything for Joseph, because if you read on in Genesis, you'll see that these are the guys that get Joseph out of prison, because he interpreted their dreams. They eventually get released. They go back to the king. The king has a dream, and these guys all of a sudden are like, "Oh yeah, we met this dude in jail that interprets dreams." And this starts Joseph on the path of getting out of prison, becoming the number 2 guy of Egypt, and doing what he did with his life. And you imagine, like, what if he hadn't noticed that they were upset? Or what if he didn't care? What if he didn't ask? Like, that notice and question changed the course of Joseph's life. And it's so tiny that I've read past it like my whole life. And it started this ripple effect of how Joseph's life would unfold in the way that it did. And most of us would be wondering how we got to jail. Like, Joseph was, minor detail, was imprisoned unfairly. Like, he wasn't supposed to be there. And so most of us would be sitting there being like, how did this happen? I'm super angry. Why did this happen? How do I get out? Like, what am I going to do to get me out? But Joseph had this level of presence and awareness that allowed his circumstances to serve him. This is where I am, so this is where I'm going to be, and I'm going to do what I can with this day, because today's the best day of your life. It's the one you've got. And we glorify outcomes when it's the experiences that get you to the outcomes. Like, the outcome for Joseph is like, I want out of prison. I want to get out of here. I shouldn't be in here. I hate it in here. I'm miserable. I want freedom. And so that, for many of us, would be what we focus on and what we glorify and we put all of our attention to. And what we see in the life of Joseph is that he wasn't doing that. He was living every day with a sense of presence and purpose. And so here's the thing. Today is happening on purpose for you. Today is happening on purpose. I thought of probably 15 different lines that I could say to like encapsulate this message, and they were all like very fun and like foo-foo, and there was alliteration and blah, blah, blah. This is what I think we need to know. Today's happening on purpose. There is a reason why today is happening. The best moment you have, as my driver's ed teacher would say, is the one that you're in. Because it's the one that you have. It's the one that is full of growth and opportunity and lessons. And that's all. Like, the moment beforehand cannot be full of opportunity and growth and lessons. The one that is yet to come cannot. It is the one that you are in. And that is what Joseph took advantage of. He knew he didn't belong in prison, but he took hold of every day, hoping for a future, of course, hoping for a future outside of a prison cell, but knowing, like, this is where my feet are planted, so this is where I'm going to be. I will be where my feet are. This moment is all that you actually have of the future, right? You can dream and you can hope and you can want, but all you can do is live in the present. And that moment, this one we have right now, is the one that is leading to the future. It's the one that is leading us to the outcome that we are so quick to glorify. This is me I'm spooning a kangaroo, as you do, right? When you're in Australia, you really do this. This is down in Australia. And this is just like a dumb picture, whatever, but it encapsulates a season of my life that felt a lot like prison. I was, weeks before this, I had been with the person that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. We had been dating for a while. We'd known each other our whole lives. And for reasons that I didn't understand then and I don't remember now, we broke up. And I was devastated. I mean, like couldn't get out of bed, kind of devastated. And I know it's crazy, like I was in my early 20s, and it's hard now to look back or to see, like, okay, well, but you got married and you had a couple kids and life is pretty great. Like, yeah, life is pretty great. But I've tried to think throughout the week of, like, what is an example I have that would feel as, like, painful as maybe not as painful as Joseph was feeling, but it's what I have. This is what I have. Like, it wasn't right. It wasn't just. I was told that things were going to go a different way. I believed things were going to go a different way. The rug was swept out from underneath me, and all of a sudden, I had no idea where my life was going. Like, I cannot describe the pain. I can't describe the pain. And I might have been young, and I might have been naive, but to this day, it's probably like the most raw pain that I have felt. And I'm sure you have something like that too. And maybe on paper, it's much grander than an early 20s breakup. But for me, like, this really rocked me. And one day I was in bed, because that's like where I could function the most. And you remember that book, where it's like Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day? At the end of that book, he goes to Australia. He moves to Australia. And so I'm thinking, like, I am in the midst of, like, Mallory's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad days. Maybe I should go to Australia, because I wanted to get away. I wanted to run away. And so I literally just Googled the word Australia, like, kind of vague, but I Googled the word Australia. And the very first thing that came up was this website to a youth with a mission, YWAM base, that was on the Sunshine Coast of Australia. And I thought, I'm youth and I need a mission. And so I looked into it further, and long story short, weeks later, I was on a plane to Australia. I got out of bed, and I was on a plane to Australia. And just like the little things the little, like, fingerprints of the Lord, like when I flew there, you miss a day when you fly to Australia because the time change is so crazy. And the day that I missed was that guy's birthday. And then I landed in Australia on the day that I first came to know the Lord when I was a kid. Like, all of these crazy things that I'm like, I think this is actually what I'm meant to be doing. And when I was supposed to be there for 6 months. I ended up staying for 2.5 years. And I led these schools. If you're familiar with YWAM, I led these schools, and, like, this is where my the calling the leadership calling on my life began. Like, this is where it unfolded, was down in Australia. And like, my life was significantly changed down there. And it all started with a Google search, right? Like, it was all just like, okay, I don't really have the strength to do much, but I can get on my computer and like listen to this voice that I hear. And I imagine for Joseph, he's probably like, I'm not super pumped about my life right now. I don't have the strength to do much, but these guys look pretty bummed, and I can probably ask them if they're okay. And it changed everything. And the same for me. Like, when I look at the timeline of my life, Australia is like this huge like blip in the radar where it's like, whoa, something really significant came out of like the depths of grief, like the bowels of grief. And now I'm not still imprisoned by that. It still hurts. Like, when I think about it, like even now it's like, oh gosh, that hurts so bad. But I'm not still imprisoned by it. And so I'm not saying that we always have to like throw confetti in the valley and wait to see like what's going to happen. But we can do enough to notice where we are, to notice our surroundings, to hear what the Lord is asking us to do, to get on Google, to ask somebody if they're okay. Like, you have no idea what those little things are going to do or where they're going to lead you to. The Lord paves all these various paths to develop godly character in us. And you see it in Joseph's life, and I feel like I can see it in mine. Like, his path to leadership and many other people that we see in Scripture, like, was paved in a very particular way. And he uses these really difficult things to shape us and to mold us and to teach us and to prepare us for that outcome that you want. And it's not always going to be the outcome that you think it's going to be, but you're being prepared for a particular outcome. And all you need to do is keep walking and keep listening and keep saying yes and keep saying, Mom, maybe I need to get on Google right now. Maybe I need to talk to that person. Maybe I need to step out of my comfort zone a little bit. Even though life is unfair right now, it really hurts right now. I feel like I'm a big, gaping, open wound right now. And I didn't ask for this, and I didn't want it, and dang it, it's really unfair that it's happening to me. And this is when the Lord says, like, watch. This is unto something. This matters because this is the moment you're in, and even though this moment hurts more than others, it is leading up to something. So today is happening on purpose. That day, March 14th, I will never forget it, when the relationship I thought I was going to be in the rest of my life ended. It happened on purpose. Didn't feel like it then, and I was pretty angry about it. But it happened on purpose, and so did every moment after that. So later in Genesis, I want to just, when Joseph was in the pit before the prison, his brothers put him there. His brothers betrayed him and put him there. And here's what he has to say at the end of his story in Genesis. He says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. It's not about what people do to you. It's not about what my ex-boyfriend did to me. He's just a character in the story. God used it for good. Great. God used it for great. And maybe he intended to hurt me, maybe he didn't. It doesn't matter, because it's not about him. It's not about what people do to you. It's about how the Lord is with you and what he can do with where you are. And he can do a lot with where you are. And so if you spend your time being preoccupied, which we'll talk about this in a second, being preoccupied with anger, you're giving the person, he would be giving his brothers all the power. And who can't have the power if somebody else does? The Lord. And so you give the person that wrongs you, whatever happened that's unjust, whatever happened that got you to where you are, and you feel like that person is to blame, that company is to blame, that leader is to blame, you're giving them all of the power when really God's like, hello, I'm intending to use this for your good. This is happening for a purpose. I know it hurts. I'm with you. I'm going to use it for your good. Don't give them so much power. They don't deserve it. What's not fair in your life? What's not fair? Oh my gosh, is there like a whole scroll of things going through your mind right now of what's not fair? There's a lot of things that are not fair. What's not fair creates fertile ground for faith. Like, that's when we get to step out and be like, okay, God, I guess you're going to intend this for my good, to accomplish something greater than I can imagine right now, because I'm really angry. I'm really hurt. I'm really low. It's fertile ground for faith. Today is happening on purpose. This day, January 24th, 2021, is happening on purpose. Not just for the person next to you, not just for your spouse, not just for your boss, for you. It's happening on purpose, all of it. I don't care how good it feels. I don't care how bad it feels. It's happening on purpose. There is a reason. And you probably heard this before, but do you really know it? You need to feel it, that it's happening on purpose. Look at how Joseph's life changed because he asked somebody if they were okay. All of a sudden, he's like the leader of Egypt. It gets really backwards for us when we ask God, will you change my present circumstances so that I can cherish the future? That's not what it's about. We should be giving thanks. Easier said than done. Gosh, I remember the bowels of grief. Easier said than done. But it's not about God, just change where I'm at so that I can get to where I want to be. It's okay, this is where I'm at. God is taking me to where I want to be. The past, it's so easy to focus on the past, which is usually either focusing on particular pain. Why did that happen? That wasn't fair. How did I let that happen? I should have done something different. Or it's living in a really happy moment that you don't really want to give up. There's living in the past, and then there's living in the future, which is maybe a little bit of hope, but honestly, mostly fear, right? If we try and live in the future where it's what if I lose something precious to me? What if something bad happens? Or if I just get this job, then things will be okay. Or if I just get this house, then I'll have the life that I want. Or if I just have this kid, then whatever it is, living in the future is not living in faith, and living in the past is not living in faith. The present moment today is all we have. It is happening on purpose for us, and we ask God to change it. We have no idea what he's going to use it for or how he's going to use it. And so we just plant our feet, and we open our eyes, and we look around, and we say, oh, maybe that's something that I can ask that person. Maybe that's a continent that I can Google. Psalm 23, it said, if you read through Joseph's story, this is another thing that just really jumps out at me. If you read through Joseph's story, the Lord was with Joseph, or I am with you, is written so many times through those chapters. It is supposed to be abundantly clear to us that Joseph is not on his own, right? That the Lord is with him. And if Jesus is Lord in the good, why can't he be Lord in the bad, right? If Jesus is Lord for Joseph when he's in the prison, why can't Jesus be Lord when he's in the pit? Or when he's in the palace, why can't he be Lord when he's in the pit? And this is something I think the Lord wants us to know and to be aware of and to be content with and to even be excited about, is that he is with us. He's planned out our days like we talked about last week. He's directing our path. He just wants us to be aware when we're walking on it. And so Psalm 23 is something I'm going to read to you out of the Message. And I think this is a challenge for us of, are we able to say this? Are we able to read this? Are we able to believe this for ourselves? God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid. When you walk at my side, your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. The emphasis is mine there. Every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. This is a sense of presence. I am back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. I think for a lot of us, our reactions when things get really hard or really painful or really unfair or all of the above is there's fight or flight, right? We've talked about that before. Charlie talks about that a lot. There's fight or flight. So either I'm going to fight this, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to change it, or flight, I'm going to run away and hide in the corner and cover my head until this passes. And then there's the third option of faith, right? Fight, flight, or faith. I'm going to walk through this with my head held as high as I can possibly keep it. And I'm going to trust that the Lord is directing my path. This is a call to great faith. Great faith, great faith, great faith. This is a call to great faith. He says he's with me. He says he's laid out my path. We talked about that last week out of Proverbs. And so, can I stay where I am, knowing his beauty and love are chasing after me? I can be home in the house of God for the rest of my life. One thing that I want to mention is that this isn't about not looking into the future or planning for the future. Like, as I said last week, I think there's wisdom, of course, in having goals and dreams and desires. Like, none of that is bad. And there are many places in Scripture where the Bible does not talk against planning. Like, these are things that we're able to do. The future is not something that you're supposed to, like, put on blockers against and, like, not ever think about or look into. But a God who tells us to ask for our daily bread is probably pretty concerned with us staying as much in the present moment as we can and not getting too ahead of ourselves. We almost never think of the present. And if we do think of it, it is only to see what light it throws on our plans for the future. Thus, we never actually live, but hope to live. And since we are always planning how to be happy, it is inevitable that we should never be so. This is the kind of quote that kind of makes me go, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to know that. We're always planning how to be happy. It is inevitable that we should never be so. And that resonates so deeply with me, especially when my life got thrown off the tracks. And it's like, okay, I'm a planner, and I like to, I like to take control. And so I'm like, okay, well, this plan A is not happening. And so now what do I need to do? Like, now what needs to happen? What do I need to put in place in order to be happy? When the Lord's saying, like, hello, right here, today's happening for you. There is joy available in this day, believe it or not. That you don't have to look so far ahead and plan for the happy outcome, because the happy experience is available to you right now. And if we're always looking at the outcome, and we're always waiting for the outcome, and we're always waiting for the happy ending, you're going to lose a lot of days of your life. Because outcomes versus experiences, there's just a lot more to experience than there is of, like, the happy ending with the bow on it. The best way that we can prepare for our future is to be where we are. The best way to prepare for your future is to live right here in the present. Because today's happening on purpose. There's a reason for it. So, this is all, like, makes perfect sense, right? I feel like it does. And so I think I'm making a lot of sense. So I want to talk a little bit as we end here about just ways that we are robbed of the present moment, and then what to do about it. So talking more like practicalities, since this isn't a very difficult concept to grasp, talking more practicalities than anything else. So what is it that robs us of the moment? And I identify with a lot of these, so maybe you will too. We numb ourselves in a varying number of ways. We try to mask or numb what's happening in the present moment, and you're going to miss it. And for a lot of us, like, that's the point. You want to miss it, right? It hurts, and you don't want to have to feel it. But anything that keeps you from having to really feel your feelings keeps you out of the moment. And so, I don't know, whatever you're numbing it with, food, alcohol, Netflix, work. There's, like, very honorable ways to numb yourself, too. Those are my favorite, because it's like, I am going to just, like, serve everybody else and ask everybody else what's wrong and, like, try and stay busy with work and keep my emails down and take care of my kids, and I don't have to feel a thing, right? Like, numbing yourself doesn't have to be all of, like, the normal things that we talk about. Those are bad. I don't care. Bad, good, you're numbing yourself. Busying ourselves, working out, or always cooking, or always... How often do you rearrange your living room? Do you know those people that you, like, go into their house, and every time you go in their house, it's, like, redecorated? It's like, what is happening? I have 0 things on my walls. I numb myself in different ways. But whatever it is, like, whatever it is you're trying to do to keep your mind busy and your body busy so that you don't have to feel how hard this season is, you're missing it. You're missing today. It sucks, but you got to feel it because this is the moment that you have. This is the day that you have. This is the part of the future that you have. You're living it right now. We're distraught. Pain, complaining, distress. And this is not meant to say like, you always have to be happy. It hurts, but you can't cry about it. No, stop. Oh my gosh, I cry all the time. I cried today already. Weeping may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. And just remember, like, here's what I have to remember is like the Lord is with me. He's laid out a path for me. If he could bring Joseph from the prison to the palace just because Joseph asked a dude if he was okay, like he can do some pretty wild stuff with me. He can do some pretty wild healing with me. He can have a really big calling on my life, even if right now it feels like my life is over. There is definitely a place for tears, please. There's definitely a place for tears, but not a permanent one. Because at the end of the day, at some point, I had to get out of bed. Like, I just had to get out of bed. I spent a lot of time in bed. But at some point, I had to get out of bed. And this is what reminds me of Charlie's first sermon in this series about peace. Peace in the moment, plus pain in the moment, equals progress unto the future. When there's peace and there's pain, there can be progress. And so allow yourself to feel what you need to feel. And if you need to cry or scream into a pillow or whatever, like, I completely get that. But it's not a place that we can stay so much that we miss what's happening around us. You got out of bed. Like, I think you're doing it. You on Facebook might still be in bed. Get out of bed. We're stubborn. Oh my gosh, I am so stubborn, and my girls are really stubborn, which like is a love-hate type of thing. They have this toy that it has like the cutouts of the shapes and then the objects that you put in, and both of them, most recently Annie, the younger one, she'll take the square object and try and shove it in the round hole and like will not take no for an answer. And so she's like trying to pound it in, and I'm like, yes, girl, I totally understand it's not gonna work. But I totally understand. Trying to get it in, and it's like, those two don't fit. That's not going to happen. And I think a lot of times we're really stubborn when we hate our current situation, and so we say, like, what about this God? Or like, I have a human brain, and you're God, but like, I came up with a really good idea that you didn't think of. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Because we want to get ourselves out of what we're actually experiencing. And so stubbornness is great. I love it. I love that I have stubborn girls. I think it's going to take them to great places, but like there's a place for it, right? And so like we can be stubborn to a point, and at some point we have to say like, this is the calling. Like this is the place. This is the path. This is the path the Lord has me on. We're blaming. This is what we talked about with Joseph's brothers. Like we can spend all day long pointing fingers at everyone who we think is at fault for getting us to where we are. Even if it's God. Maybe it's God. You can spend all day long pointing fingers. It's your fault. It's your fault. You suck. I hate you. Blah, 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 whatever. You know what you do when you spend the day blaming people is you miss your day. Like you miss your moments. You're not living in the present moment, aware with your feet firmly planted in the ground, soaking it all in. You're spending your time blaming other people. Or we're checked out. This is like we talked about last week with autopilot, and this one is super sneaky. Okay, do you know the computer? I think it was like, I played it on the computer, like a big old computer, Lemmings. Did anybody play Lemmings? Okay, Sam did, so that makes me feel not good because he's like a gamer. It was like Oregon Trail type of game, like real old school, and anyways, it was all these little things, and they just like followed each other and like didn't even look up. I think of this a lot. I think of Lemmings a lot. Look it up. Somebody get on Google and look it up. Because they're like, they all look the same, and I think sometimes you look at like a busy city in the morning, and it's like, you're all lemmings. Like nobody's paying attention to anything that's happening around them. It's just like you're in your flow. Right? And so it's like, I leave my house, I drive this way, and you're like unaware that you're driving, which is kind of scary. I get my coffee here, I go to work, I sit down, I check my email. Like you've got your rhythm. And the thing that gets me about Joseph is like, that wasn't part of his rhythm to see those guys and to notice something was off and to ask him if they're okay. Like he was checked in. He was checked into what was happening. And so a lot of times we can be checked out and like we're not even aware of it. And suddenly like hours go by and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like, am I still breathing? What's happening? You know? So this one's really sneaky, but I think it can take a lot of moments from us. 1 Corinthians 7:17, don't be wishing you were someplace else or with someone else. Where you are right now is God's place for you. Live and obey and love and believe right there. Be where your feet are. Like your feet are where they are right now. Feel your feet. Do you ever feel your feet? Like move your toes. Feel your feet. This is where you are. Like let it rise. Let your whole body be where you are. So this is what we do about it. How do we live today on purpose? Surrender, huge one. This morning, this is not the reason I cried, though I wanted to. So Annie is on an antibiotic right now. Everything's fine, I'm fine. Giving her medicine is like, I don't know. I feel like I climbed Everest and back today trying to get this medicine in her mouth. And it's like, you have to really like do a kind of stronghold on. You feel, it wasn't hurting her, but like you kind of wonder like, will she come back from this? Because it's just, and it tastes like bubble gum or something. I'm like, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And she just like fights it so hard. And I had this thought that today, trying to give her medicine, like, this would be so much easier on both of us. Like everybody, the entire world would be a little bit more at peace if you would just like relax and let this happen. Just let it happen. And this is like I was talking about last week with my 32-pound head. It's like making this a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Like, take a breath right now. Have you taken a deep breath yet today? There's a game changer. Just surrender. And I know I say that like, oh my gosh, that's super easy. Whatever, I was in bed for like 6 months. So no, it's not very easy. But like, the Lord is doing something in your life. And so if we like are stiff and try and fight it, it's going to be a lot harder on both of us. And so we just surrender to the Lord's will. Ride that wave. Awareness. This one is so huge. Awareness. Joseph was keenly aware of his surroundings to see like, those dudes look like they're not okay. I'm going to ask them what's going on. The other morning, I was driving the girls to daycare, and so I'm thinking, different from what I'm preaching right now. I'm thinking like, what do I have to get done? Like, what's happening in the future? All of me is in the future. And then I look back and I see Evie, and I just wonder. She's quiet, which is weird, and so I'm just like, I wonder what her little 2.5-year-old brain is thinking, because that's like really interesting to me. Like, what do they think about, you know? And so I'm like, Ev, what are you thinking about? And she was quiet for a very long time. And then she said, the sun. And I was like, oh, it was sunny. It was a beautiful day. I'm like, oh, okay. How humbling for me, who's about to preach a sermon about living in the moment and taking it all in, because that's not what I was thinking about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. Like, I love that you're aware of the sun and you're thinking about it and like soaking it in. Like, how great is that? Your little 2.5-year-old brain is much better than mine. We are to taste and see. Like, life is bodily. We have all these senses, 5 of them. Like, use them. They are meant to be used. Taste and see, listen, look, like opportunities. Look for what the Lord is doing. Look for the lemon in your shoe. Like last week where it's like, oh, my kid was here. There's a plastic lemon in my shoe. Where are you seeing that with the Lord? Like, where are you seeing? It's really hard to see what the Lord is doing when you're not looking. And so having this awareness of like drinking in your environment is totally what I saw Joseph do. And I was very less aware when I was in bed Googling Australia, but I had enough of like myself to know, I think this is a thing I'm supposed to do. Aware enough. Joseph had me beat for sure. Gratitude. Awareness is what grows gratitude. And so if you want to enjoy or like have any level of thankfulness for the path that you're on, which you do, awareness is going to take you there. Like, oh, it's sunny out. I'm freezing and can't feel anything, but it's sunny out. Like, this is how great. How great is the sun? Awareness will grow your gratitude. If we believe what Scripture says, we know that God is with us. And if nothing else, that's something to be grateful for. So if you have nothing to say when I ask, what are you grateful for today? there's something. If you believe what Scripture says, God is with us. And like we see in Scripture, like, I will rejoice in my suffering. What? You're nuts. I will be miserable in my suffering. I will rejoice in my suffering. And like, if Joseph could look back on his life and see how it all played out, of course he would rejoice in his suffering. And same for me, like, if I could go back to March 14th and see how it all played out from then, I would do a little bit more rejoicing, because look where the Lord took me. And if I imagine where my life would have gone had that not happened, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. I will rejoice in my suffering. Like, that is an act of great faith, to rejoice in your suffering, because you believe the story's not over yet. He's leading you somewhere. Something is unfolding. Patience. Whoa, I hate this one so much. The Lord is not interested in just moving you from A to B and B to C. He wants to shape and teach and show up for us along the way, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time. I think I've shared before, we had this like horrible experience with our health insurance when Annie was born over a year ago. It's not still going on. The bills are still going on. It's not still going on. But it lasted for over a year, literally, like this battle with the health insurance. And that could rattle me, I learned. Health insurance battles and like big numbers with commas are very scary to me. And through both within myself and my time with the Lord and through other people, he said, like, I'm going to get you through this. I'm going to get you through this. I'm going to get you through this. It might take a while. And I'm like, yeah, okay. How about like just the get me through this part? I don't know. I want to fight, flight. This is not good for my body. I need to get through this. And the Lord said, I'm going to get you through this. It might take a while. And like for me, that was only a year. Like Joseph was in prison after he had that conversation 2 more years. Like, we see this all through Scripture. That patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. But God is more focused on developing our character through these things than the chronological time it takes to get to the outcome that we want. And so we have to be patient. Ownership. Don't fall asleep on your life. Don't fall asleep on your life. Like, take some ownership. So we're not just passengers. We need to act and make moves. Get on Google, please. Get on Google. Ask someone how they're doing. Like, these are things we're asked to step out. And like, of course the Lord has a path. And this is what we talked about last week, where I was on that horse that was going crazy. And it's like, okay, the horse knows what it's doing. The horse is leading me. The horse is taking me where I need to go. But I need to like have some part of my mind working, and I need to hold on. Like, I need to do some things. I need to do whatever I need to do to stay on this horse. Like, I have some level of responsibility. And so do you over your life. The Lord gave you a mind. The Lord gave you a will. The Lord gave you the ability to do things. Whatever it is, get out of bed. And so we need to take some ownership and actually act. And then finally, this all rests on, like all of these things rest on or encompassed within faith. Proverbs 3, like we talked about last week, trust in the Lord and he will direct your path. Verse 8, how we ended it last time, your body will glow with health. Your very bones will vibrate with life. Trusting in the Lord, like that is what that leads to. Your body will glow with health, probably because you're not in fight or flight, and your very bones will vibrate with life. So faith is like kind of the cornerstone of these things. I love a message where I can use Matthew 11, 28 and 30 through 30. I love it. I try to do it as often as I can. This is out of the Message, and I just love this translation of it. How many of you can relate? Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And I imagine for Joseph, he felt pretty tired and worn out. He felt like things were a little bit heavy. And the Lord is saying, like, I'm with you. Keep company, free and light, free and light. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. There might be some tears. There might be some difficult days. Free and light. Because today's happening on purpose. There is a purpose, and it is unto something greater. And if it's really hard for you to believe that for yourself, like, sure, it's easy for her to believe it or for Joseph or whatever, like, wait and see. Wait and see. Today is happening on purpose. Here's the question to ask yourself. I know I won't be here forever, but what is in it for me now? I know I won't be here forever, but what is in it for me now? And that might be like, maybe you're in a really great place, right? Like maybe you're not really identifying with the prison thing right now. I know I won't be here forever, happy, depressed, whatever, but what is in it for me now? And that's the question I want to have you ask yourselves during reflection today. You could ask, Lord, what are you saying to me in light of what I've heard? Which is what we traditionally ask. But another version of that is, I know I won't be here forever, but what is in it for me now? If today's happening on purpose, show me the purpose. Like, help me know. Help me step out. Help me ask questions that need to be asked. Help me make moves that I need to make unto my future. The outcome is the outcome, and it's happening, it's coming. But this is the good, this is the meaty part. This is the good stuff, where you grow and you're shaped and you learn and you get to see the Lord in wild ways. And so we're going to take a couple of minutes to reflect, just let some of that sink in a little bit, and then Leslie will come up and close us out.
Hopefully this is working. Hey, there we go. Okay. Initiatives next month, February, right around the corner. We want your initiative ideas. If you have something that you are doing or that you're excited about and you want to invite people into, we would love for that to happen. So you can head to the website, submit your initiative idea there, and we will get in touch with you to help make that a reality. We also would love your breakout ideas. So if you are an owner here at City Church or you're interested in becoming an owner, and you have something that you'd like to teach about or lead a conversation about on Sunday mornings for breakouts, that's awesome. We will love that as well. You can also head to the website and submit those ideas too. Also, every week, Wednesday night, we have prayer night. The Lord is doing some really, really amazing things there. This past week was so great. We would love for you guys to be a part of that too. So every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, childcare provided for those 5 and under. And older kids are welcome to join us in here as well. Also, to give, you can just reply to the last giving text message if you've done that before, or you can text give to that number up there. You can also give online at the website. Your giving is so important to us. We need it to operate and to continue doing the ministry that we do here. So now we are on to the breakout portion of today. You have 3 options. First is the Discover MVLA 2021 thing at a time. Today is about making a peaceful space. So actually like decluttering and getting junk out of your space so it's a more peaceful environment. That's out by the coffee. Then in here we have the deeper, just digging in a little more into Mallory's message from today. And then out in the core values room is the message 100 continuing on with Isaiah. So you can decide where you want to go, head to the restroom, get some more coffee, and then we will get started in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for participating in our conversation with your comments and your questions. As always, we would love it if you would share the link to today's message. If you need anything, you want to know more about who we are, you can visit our website at citychurchdayton.com or send us an email to info@citychurchdayton.com. Have a great week.